Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This video is going to be who should Tony Ferguson fight next? And these are going to be realistic opponents that UFC might actually make these fights and my personal preference. I'm going to put them in order from 4 to 1 of my personal preference. Who do I want to see Tony Ferguson fight next? Some of you guys may already know some of the options, but I'm going to go through them. A lot of you guys have requested me to do this video. So if you guys have any other requests for any other fighter you want me to do this video for, let me know in the comments. And comment down below before I even get into my picks for Tony Ferguson's next fight. Comment down below. Let me know, who do you want to see Tony Ferguson fight next? So first off, before I even get into the potential next fight for Tony Ferguson, people have to stop dancing on this man's grave. I know he is of advanced age. He's in his late 30s. I know he's on a 3-fight losing streak. But look at the guys he has lost to. I mean, you're talking Justin Gaethje for the interim lightweight title. Then you're talking Charles Oliveira, the current lightweight champion. And then you're talking about Beneil Dariush, number 3 in the lightweight division, probably one fight away from a potential title shot. So they're 3 elite lightweights. And people have just been dancing on Tony Ferguson's grave, saying he's done, saying, he doesn't have it anymore. These are stylistic nightmares for him, especially Charles Oliveira and Beneil Dariush. Justin Gaethje went out there and outstruck him. The other two just really grappled him, unable to submit him. I mean, Charles Oliveira had that armbar. Tony Ferguson fought out of it. Beneil Dariush, I think he had a leg lock at one point, tore up Tony's knee. Tony refused to tap. And Tony still looked decent on the feet in some of those fights. And people forget, he almost finished Justin Gaethje at the end of the first round for that interim lightweight title. So come on, this guy had a crazy win streak before this. He's lost 3 fights, but he's fought 3 killers. So we have to cut him some slack. I think he can bounce back. I'm not saying he'll ever be champion. I mean, granted, he's lost to 3 of the top guys in the division. I don't think he can probably come back and be a champion, but he can still have some elite high-level fights against quality competition. And there's also some fun fights out there, which you guys will see here in a second. So let's pump the brakes on retiring Tony Ferguson. The stamina still looks good. The striking, still looks good as it once was. I mean, he's unorthodox. He doesn't have the craziest boxing or anything like that. The jiu-jitsu looks good. The submission defense, or I don't know if you want to call that submission defense or not, looks good. I think Tony Ferguson can still compete at a high level. I'm not ready to retire him or throw him to the wolves, and really, say, okay, let this guy beat him up and make a name off him. I don't believe that's going to happen. I think Tony Ferguson is going to be a tough fight for most guys. There is some nightmare matchups for him. And the first guy that I'm going to name is my least favorite fight, but I think there's potential that the UFC makes it. This guy is currently ranked number 10 in the division. Tony Ferguson is ranked number 6 currently, and this is Gregor Gillespie. Now, Gregor Gillespie has serious potential. He has unlimited cardio. He has been KO'd by Kevin Lee, but he looks very promising and he has great wrestling. Now, in my opinion, I don't want this matchup at all. I think it can happen, but Gregor Gillespie, he's just a heavy wrestler, heavy top game, and that's Tony Ferguson's absolute weakness. But the reason I include it on the list is because I think it's a real world matchup that the UFC could potentially make. They want to build Gregor Gillespie up. Just like, a lot of people didn't even know who Charles Oliveira was before he beat Tony Ferguson. So Gregor Gillespie, he can make a name off Tony Ferguson, and the UFC likes to do that. And, I don't want to see it, not because I don't think it would be competitive, but I kind of want to see Tony Ferguson in a little bit more fun fights. Still high-level fights, but fun fights. And I think he could submit Gregor Gillespie, but I favor Gregor Gillespie in that fight. I think he would just grapple him, take him down, hold him down, ground and pound, and he has the cardio to. It's not like, Tony Ferguson tends to drown guys with his pressure and his unlimited cardio, and that's not going to happen in a Gregor Gillespie fight. It's just not going to happen. Tony Ferguson has the edge in the striking. I believe he's the far superior striker to Gregor Gillespie, but the takedown defense and the inability to get up off his back is going to be a huge factor in that fight. So I don't really want to see that fight, and there's so many other great matchups, outside this list, but I figured I'd put it on there because I think there's a real chance the UFC could make that. So next on my list, I kind of want it at the same time for, I'll get into the reasons in a second, but at the same time, I kind of don't want it. And that matchup is Tony Ferguson versus Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz is coming off that loss to Robbie Lawler where he retired in the middle of the fight. He said, I can't continue anymore. And it was a TKO via retirement. Tony Ferguson has fought at 170 before. Nick Diaz would be a stylistic fun fight for him, and it would be a stylistic fun fight for both guys and the fans. I mean, who wouldn't want to see Tony Ferguson versus Nick Diaz? And I know Nick Diaz, looked terrible against Robbie Lawler, but a lot of people are saying give him one more fight. I personally don't want to see him fight again, but if he does, I'd love to see him fight Tony Ferguson. It's a winnable fight for Tony Ferguson. And also, if Nick Diaz comes in shape, like this is the excuse people are laying out for Nick Diaz. Oh, he wasn't in shape. He was injured. So let's give Nick Diaz one more chance. Let's let him come in shape at 170, not 185. Fight a manageable stylistic matchup in Tony Ferguson, and let's see how he does. And it gets, the UFC tends to match guys who are on losing streaks up with other guys on losing streaks. Nick Diaz is on a losing streak. Tony Ferguson is on a losing streak. They like to do that because they can get one guy back on track. So either way, the UFC gets Tony Ferguson back on track or they get Nick Diaz back on track. And that's such a fun matchup. Both of them have good cardio. Both of them have good striking. Neither one of them are really going to try to initiate the grappling. And if they do, they both have great jiu-jitsu. So sign me up for that fight. I would enjoy that fight. Now, again, I wouldn't want it as like a main event of a fight night or anything like that. But I'd love for it to be on a pay-per-view. That fight would have to be 5 rounds. It would absolutely have to be 5 rounds. I don't care where it is on the card. I need Tony Ferguson versus Nick Diaz as a 5-round fight. So number 2 on my list now, I've already gave you number 4 and number 3. Number 2 on my list is going to be Tony Ferguson. If you guys followed the channel, you already knew this matchup was coming. I want to see Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz. Now, I love this fight far more than the Nick Diaz fight. Nate Diaz is on a losing streak right now. Tony Ferguson's on a losing streak right now. It makes perfect sense. Nate Diaz still looked good. Even against Leon Edwards, who's at 170. And neither one of these guys, whether it be Tony Ferguson or Nate Diaz, neither one of those guys are true 170ers. So they're basically two lightweights, not cutting weight. They're fighting at 170. They're not training their bodies. They both have similar skill sets, kind of weird, unorthodox striking. I think Nate has a little bit better boxing. Both have unlimited cardio. And again, this fight would have to be 5 rounds. And I absolutely love this fight. It was a toss-up between this being number 1 or not, but I just decided to throw it in as number 2. But I would love to see, both guys trying to walk each other down. Tony doing some type of weird rolls, trying to, get a leg lock out of nowhere in the middle of the fight. But I could see both guys getting bloodied up. Nate Diaz has so much scar tissue, and Tony Ferguson loves throwing those elbows. So these guys are going to get battered in this fight. And again, this has to be 5 rounds. I don't care where it is on a pay-per-view. And this would draw in pay-per-views. So I really think that you throw Tony versus Nick or Tony versus Nate on a pay-per-view card, it is going to draw pay-per-view buys. And that's what the UFC looks for when they have these veteran guys who are popular. They want to use them to draw in some pay-per-view buys on maybe a card where the champion isn't as well known. The main event, who's the champion, isn't as well known as a Diaz brother or a Tony Ferguson. Now for number one makes sense, but it depends on the time frame. And number 1 is Tony Ferguson versus Conor McGregor. I would love this matchup. This matchup's been speculated so many times. He was supposed to step in instead of Justin Gaethje last year for the interim title. And Justin Gaethje ended up stepping in instead of Conor. Conor said he didn't want the fight. People have said Conor has ducked Tony before. And I love the matchup because, again, it gets one guy back on track. Conor McGregor has now lost 2 in a row since winning against Cowboy, but he hasn't won against an elite lightweight since 2016 against Eddie Alvarez. So Conor McGregor coming back off the leg break, let's match him up with Tony Ferguson. And that fight, I know people say this about every Conor McGregor fight, but if Conor McGregor doesn't stop him in the first or early second round, Conor McGregor is in for a tough night because he tends to fade, and Tony Ferguson can eat shots and just keep coming, and he has unlimited stamina. He will walk Conor down and look to brutalize him in the 3rd and 4th round. Now, that's a 50-50 fight in my opinion. I think either guy could win. I think Conor, he has precision striking. He can find Tony's chin and maybe put him out. I don't know. Tony hasn't been put out in forever or even ever. I don't even remember the last time he's been TKO'd or KO'd. The guy is so durable and unlimited stamina, which is an absolute nightmare matchup for Conor. But I think it makes perfect sense depending on when Tony wants to return. I don't know exactly when Conor's going to return. I would assume spring of next year. So maybe Tony wants some more time off. He sits out till spring of next year and he fights Conor McGregor. And the fans would love this fight. Now, me personally, I don't think this fight would belong as a main event of a pay-per-view. But with Conor McGregor, you never know. And, I guess this would be as an intriguing matchup as you could get as far as a non-title fight. So, it is what it is. And could you imagine the press conference in the lead up to Conor McGregor versus Tony Ferguson? It would be hilarious. And the stylistic matchup would be super fan friendly. There's no way that fight sucks. Conor McGregor, one of the most exciting fighters stylistically in the UFC. Tony Ferguson, the same. That's why so many people love him. If I had to go with one fight that I think is most likely for the UFC to make, okay, of all four of those matchups, Gregor Gillespie, Nick Diaz, Nate Diaz, and now Conor McGregor, if I had to say which fight was most likely to happen, I think it is Nate Diaz. I think the UFC could potentially make Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz at UFC 269 in December. So if I had to call one, I would put my money on Tony Ferguson versus Nate Diaz, UFC 269, December 11th. That's what I'm betting the UFC makes, and I'm really hopeful that the UFC does make it. And the winner of that fight can then go fight Conor McGregor in spring or summer of 2022. So that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next video.